Bro, just a couple of dudes. 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 Just a couple of dudes. Okay, may this quick little reading be of a blessing to you. I hope you enjoy it. This is from the Masonic Letter G by Dr. Paul Foster Case. I'm just going to go to a random page. Actually, let me go to the Kabbalah section. Kabbalists say this tree contains three pillars that on the observer's right, consisting of the Sephiroth number 247, is named the pillar of mercy after the fourth Sephirah, Chesed, mercy. The pillar on the left side of the tree is called the pillar of strength. After the fifth Sephirah, Geburah, the Hebrew noun most often used for strength. This pillar consists of the three Sephiroth number 3, 5, and 8. The third pillar is midway between the other two. It is composed of the Sephiroth 1, 6, 9, and 10. Kabbalists call it pillar of mildness, because it is said to be the balancing influence between the other two. So these are the 10 Sephiroth. 1, Kether, crown. 2, Chokmah, wisdom. 3, Bina, understanding. 4, Chesed, mercy. 5, Geburah, strength. 6, Tefirah, beauty. 7, Netzach, victory. 8, Hod, splendor. 9, Yesod, foundation. 10, Makoth, kingdom. These three Kabbalistic pillars are obviously the supports of the Masonic Lodge, but Masonry names the pillar on the right after the Sephirah number 2 and named Chokmah, wisdom. For the pillar on the left, it retains the Kabbalistic name strength. 2, the Kabbalistic middle pillar, which is also the middle pillar in the Lodge, it applies to the name beauty, taken from the title of the Sephirah numbered 6, Tifereth, beauty. All this will be better understood after the reader has inspected the accompanying diagram of the Tree of Life. From the Kabbalah. Freemasonry has also borrowed the method of using letters to represent numbers and numbers to represent words. Mackey says this device was frequently employed by the inventors of the higher degrees, such as those now included in the Scottish Rite. He might have added that it is one of the most important clues to the real secrets of the first 3 degrees constituting the Blue Lodge, everywhere conceded to be the foundation of the whole Masonic structure. Nothing can be much farther from the truth than the supposition that the so-called higher degrees confer any essential secret that is withheld from Blue Lodge Masons. All the mysteries of Freemasonry are synthesized in the 3 primary degrees. The higher degrees no more than the elaboration and exemplification of what is communicated to the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason, and the number letter system of the Kabbalah is the key that unlocks this essential mystery. The same device provides us also with the only clue to the real meaning of the many obscure passages in the Bible. It solves the enigmas of the Old Testament and elucidates the dark sayings of the New, for it was utilized by the writers of both sections of that library of wisdom which lies open on Masonic altars. This device came into use among the Hebrews and the Greeks because when the Bible was composed, neither nation knew anything of the Arabic numerals. They employed the letters of their alphabets to represent numbers. The first 9 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are the digits 1 through 9. The next 9, the tens, from 10 to 90, and the last 4 letters stand for the hundreds from 100 to 400. To 5 special forms known as Kap final, Mem final, Nun final, Pa final, and Zadi final, which are always used when any of these letters comes at the end of a Hebrew word. They assigned the hundreds from 500 to 900. Thousands were indicated by writing a letter larger than the others. The Greeks used a similar device, but as their alphabet contains only 24 letters, the highest number represented by a single character was 800, corresponding to Omega, The modern Greek alphabet also has no character for the number 6, but the Greeks indicated it by an ancient character known as the digamma, or double gamma, which had the value of 6 because gamma itself is 3, so that a double gamma would be twice 3, or when men used the letters of the alphabet for arithmetical computations, it must often have happened that some numbers formed actual words, such as AB, which is the number 3 in Hebrew and also means father. Once this had been noticed, it would be perfectly natural to adopt special spellings of some other words, if for no other reason than as an aid to memory, just as we remembered the number of days in the month by means of a bit of doggerel. From this to the adoption of a cryptic mode of writing, in which the real signification of a word or phrase might be discovered from the numeral value, was but a short step. Fantastic as it may appear to the modern mind, there is abundant evidence that just this is what occurred in the composition of many passages in both the Hebrew of the Old Testament and the Greek of the New. Thus we find that many names of deity in the Old Testament, including the ineffable name Jehovah, are multiples of the number 13. In the New Testament and in the Christian Gnostic writings, the number 37 occurs repeatedly as a multiple of the names of the epithets of Jesus Christ. The most familiar example of the use of the number letter system is in Revelation 13, where we read, "And he causes all, the little and the great, the rich and the poor, and the freemen and the bondmen, that they should give themselves a mark on the right hand or on the forehead, so that no one may be able to buy or sell unless he has the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding compute the number of the beast, for it is a man's number, and his number is 666. Emphatic Diaglott translation. In this passage, the number 666 is written with 3 characters, the letter X or chi for 600, the letter EZ for 60, and the digamma R for 6. In the opinion of the best biblical scholars, says the Encyclopedia Britannica, the primary signification of this number, whatever else it may mean, has to do with the Roman Emperor Nero, whose name was written in the rabbinical Hebrew of that period as Neron Kaiser, which adds to 666. Note that the New Testament writer introduces the number with the words, "Here is wisdom," and then says, "Let him who has understanding compute the number." Evidently, he intended what he wrote to be comprehended by a special class of readers to whom such computations were familiar. The rabbinical name for this method of writing and for the interpretation of one word or phrase of the Hebrew Scriptures by another which has the same numeral value is gematria. This is the very Hebrew noun alluded to in our statement that the letter G is the initial of a Hebrew word derived from the Greek noun geometry. It is assumed too much to suppose that the Hebrew rabbis, when they chose their own name for this cryptic method of writing and of interpreting Scripture, had some definite reason for borrowing the Greek word for geometry and writing it with Hebrew letters. Is it not reasonable to conclude that in selecting this particular term, they intended to hint that many of the more important secrets of the Holy Writ have to do with the number, measure, proportion, weight, and other special relationships? In that Bible of the Kabbalists, the Zohar, there is a long passage explaining the meaning of Genesis 6:8-9, where we read, "Noah found favor in the eyes of God. Perfect was he in his generations." We are not here concerned with the details of the Kabbalistic commentary of this passage. What is to the purpose of our present inquiry is that the Zohar makes one of those who heard the comment say to the teacher, "Your exposition is certainly the right one. This can also be deduced from the measurements of the ark." This is as much as to say that the various numbers and measures mentioned in the Old Testament are clues to an inner meaning. Kabbalistic method of finding that meaning is to turn the numbers into words and phrases. This is the Kabbalistic geometry or gematria, which affords us clues to the inner meaning of many details of Freemasonry. Gematria enabled the writers of both sections of the Bible to conceal geometrical formulas and measurements by means of words and phrases, or to indicate words by what appear to be merely measurements. Okay, that's all we'll read from that. That's the Masonic letter G. Okay, this is the Adrian Dittman Show. Hope you enjoyed that Torah study there.
Me. Oh, he followed me. He's like, "I'm busty."
You're so good at it. I deleted TikTok. I was like, fuck no.
You're the bee. Come up, Earth. Hey, Earth, say hi to Al.
Hi, Al.
This is Jefferson. So good. So perfect.
Shut up, Lol.
It's not hard.
Kill yourself.
That one wasn't
No,
good.
he said like, yes. Nora, I hope Nora dies. No, what did he say?
You say it in his accent, Abby.
Here comes a fucking wannabe single person who's bearing the fuck up teeth here. Oh, hey, Rico.
Here we go.
When I was jumping on stage, I didn't hear it. You guys said it.
Been chasing little girls lately in school zones?
Ooh.
19 to an adult. Yeah.
Okay, well, make sure the wisdom tooth comes out.
19-year-old?
He does. He loves that pedophilia shit.
Yeah, it's
How
not
old are you?
pedophilia.
It is kind of pedophilic. It's because she's younger and she was like a fucking child. Like, not even
Years ago,
born, probably.
She was a child.
She was born in 2004, by all sakes.
Yeah, so I don't know. Pussy, you're a guy or something like that.
You were literally in high school.
What was happening? These black men have no peer group of the United States of America doing anybody wrong. It's all those crazy Muslims, you know, with their beards and their horses, and you know, of course, it's oppressing their women and not eating pork chops for breakfast. Right, Sam?
Okay. Calling it the United States of America is not making a great point. What in your model explains why Hong Kong and Singapore are rich? Please just answer that question. I've asked you like 6 times.
So you're not gonna respond to anything that I just said?
I was the one that was first talking about Hong Kong and Singapore. You decided to change the subject. I'm begging you to
just stealing. That you cannot deny this fact. Just this week, Trump was saying if Saudi Arabia will give me $600 million, I will go first to Saudi Arabia.
It is McConnell voted. Earth tends to, literally the universe tends to be expert John Mallon.
And
AT&T. John is an expert in physics, and Cora is an expert. Happens because of the laws.
Excellent. Just on the words from earlier, just a bit of a clarification. I came in.
Federal government out of criticizing either some type of video.
Big words.
Mean Rush. They can feel good like the noise trolls do when they come in and speak their rhetoric or play some music. They get
So, let's see, we got about 3 minutes left. Yes, Les? You wanted to give an explanation, Les?
what I wanted to say is that
You're putting them into it like it just doesn't sound right. So it is a
Comments were just people seemingly today have lost the ability to have a comprehension of the meaning of the words that they are using. So it's coming out incoherent, but it might make sense to them. And that might be because of their limited apprehension and comprehension of the language in which they're choosing. The reason why I bring this up is because in the beginning was the word, and just the word logos and what logos actually means. It's, for example, it's basically, here I'll put reason or the rational principle expressed in words and things, argument or justification.
Please delete your channel,
So
bro.
it's just
Please.
important for anybody speaking or listening to have a understanding of logos and the meaning and comprehension of the words that they are using. I think is very important. I think it was a great comment, Wes, and I just wanted to dig into it a little further. Thank you. I appreciate that. And before we move on to Elliot and Earth, there is a related word which nobody has brought up, probably because it's related. It arguably is related to word salad, but arguably not. And the word, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is Schadenfreude. And here is Alan Shore to explain the definition of Schadenfreude. And after that, we'll go to Elliot and Earth.
Schadenfreude. From the German words Schaden and Freude, damage and joy. It means to take spiteful, malicious delight in the misfortune of others. We used to dismiss this as simply an ugly side of human nature, but it is much, much more than that. Recently, a Stanford professor actually captured Schadenfreude on a brain scan. It's a physiological medical phenomenon. When we see others fall, it sometimes causes a chemical to be released in the dorsal striatum of the
Yo, Zach, this was my appearance on the Uncle Steve show today.
brain, which actually causes
Not this part, but coming up.
us to feel pleasure.
I think you were there when I
If
did
you
my
watch the
trans
news or read the papers, which of course
comedy
you don't because the
routine.
judge said not to. But if you did, you would see the undeniable, delicious joy of the media and the public over Kelly Nolan's plight. I have no doubt that you want Kelly Nolan to be punished. She married for money, she had an affair, she carried on naked in the pool with her boyfriend. She's cold, materialistic, unlikable. And it might bring you all pleasure to see her go to jail. But as for evidence to establish that she committed a murder beyond all reasonable doubt, it just isn't there. The only possible route to a guilty verdict here is Schadenfreude.
Let's move on to Elliot. Good morning, Elliot. Welcome
Schadenfreude.
to the show. What would you like to talk about?
Phone home, Elliot. Phone home.
Elliot going once, Elliot going twice. We'll come back to Elliot. Let's move on.
Okay, this was me trolling the Uncle Steve show. Here we go.
On to Earth. Good morning, Earth. It's a pleasure to see you on the show. What would you like to talk about?
Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, that's done.
I know.
Communication and hypnosis. And that word salad is like what Shakespeare said. Words, 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 words. And if all you do is use words, and you never listen, and shut up, and you never learn the secret of meditation, go within to know the truth that the more you speak, the more you think, the further from the truth you will be, Uncle Steve. Therefore, stop thinking and end your problems. Stop with your word salad, sir. You are addicted to salad. Salad words, words, salad. I am complete. Thank you, Uncle Steve.
Thank you. And a first class to the VIP. I think that was somewhat entertaining because it lasted 60 seconds. I have no problem with that contribution to the show. 3 to 5 minutes, I probably would have gotten a headache. But 60 seconds, I think it was
Good for the show. Let's try Elliot again. Elliot, are you there? Elliot going once. Elliot going twice. Okay, we'll come. Oh, there we go. Hi, Elliot.
I'm getting breakfast with my daughter, so.
Does that mean you don't want to speak now, but you want to speak in a little bit?
Yeah, in a little bit.
All right, go ahead and go on mute. We'll come back to you. So we've got our mandatory break coming up in about 10 minutes, and then the show will go one more hour. So if you're in the audience and you want to come on up, please feel free. You are encouraged to talk about anything. Religion, God, politics, current events, Clubhouse, you, me. And if you need some suggestions on what to talk about, here's what I call the best 2 minutes on Clubhouse.
Tonight, for the first time ever, the U.S. using military planes for deporting migrants. President Trump touring disaster zones, signaling he's open to eliminating FEMA. And the Israeli hostages held by Hamas just hours away from being released.
Excellent. Just on the words from earlier, just a bit of a clarification. I came in, I didn't hear what Dr. James said, but then I heard Les and you guys, and I just wanted to say, like, well, you could use word salad to be saying somebody's using big words and they don't understand them. Word salad is generally just nonsensical jumble bumble. Trying to sound smart using words that you don't know how to use them and putting them in could be a word salad, but more specifically, it's well known to be pseudo-intellectual jargon, right? So you're using big words, you're putting them into it, like it just doesn't sound right. So it is a form of word salad, but I wouldn't say that everyone, if I told somebody, oh, she was talking in word salad, it wouldn't necessarily mean that the person was using big words to sound smart. It would have just meant that it was a mess, right? And I wasn't sure how you connected the word Schadenfreude to that, because Schadenfreude has nothing to do with mumbo jumbo. It has to do with a feeling of pleasure you get from somebody else's pain or misfortune. So I don't know how you linked that and wanted to catch up.
You might have missed my introduction to the word Schadenfreude, where I said that a related word, I said it is not a synonym. Well, I didn't say it's not a synonym, but I alluded to that it's not as, because when I find that when people accuse other people of word salad, and we had about 4 different definitions, I find some people say that that is word salad because they are getting some enjoyment out of criticizing either some type of video or some type of person for what they talk about. And that is the definition of Schadenfreude.
Yeah, but generally that's
well, I think there's a huge stretch there. I won't go into it because it'd be too boring, but I'd let go of that a little bit, Steve, because that's a huge stretch to get there. Okay, I won't speak anymore.
No, actually, I would like everybody to go on mute except for Victoria, because Victoria has a few more minutes left. Her criticism of my using the word Schadenfreude is well placed, and it is true. I just thought I would throw it in there because when people were giving their different definitions of word salad, I thought of the word Schadenfreude. But go ahead, Victoria, if you wish.
Well, no, it's just that sometimes we will end up sounding pseudo-intellectual if we make links like that, right? So, and for you to say, oh, because, like, you've got to make a bunch of inferences that the person being criticized first feels pain or misfortune for the other person to feel pleasure in that pain. You know, yeah, when people are criticizing the way other people speak or pointing out that it sounds like gobbledygook, they may be having a feeling of superiority or be condescending and a whole bunch of other words. But it's not quite the same as the word Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is when it's sort of unrelated. You didn't cause it. You're just feeling, and perhaps you can feel pain or pleasure if you've caused it. But more importantly, it's seeing someone fall or seeing somebody do something or have something happen to them that they would consider very bad, and you get pleasure out of it, right? So it can be in a very bad way, and it usually meant that we're sitting there, like Mr. Burns going, excellent, right? But often people use it in a way where, when people see pranks or something like that, and we get a bit of joy or pleasure from a funny fall if we see something funny. But I wouldn't use it that way. Some people do, but even that is not the same as this. I'm going to get pleasure out of somebody else's pain that I caused them by.
Just as it wills.
Critiquing them. It just didn't link.
This is like the gobbledygook that this trans faggot is deciding to lay back upon people. It's like, what is a word salad? Well, let me show you what a word salad is.
For me, and that's what I was looking for. I did hear your opening statement on it, that you said it was related, but I think that maybe the word isn't as familiar in your vocabulary as it is in mine. Maybe you just don't use it enough. I don't know, but not that you would need to use it. So anyway, it was just confusing.
Word salad.
And you've straightened it out. I just disagree, and that's okay.
What the fuck did you even say, Victoria?
I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, right? It's okay.
You are totally wrong.
Okay for us to disagree.
Thank you, Victor. I agree with everything that you said. Everything that you said is spot on.
I agree with it all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Show's
Victoria.
better with you than without you. I saw Ben Mendelsohn come on stage and then he took off. So let's see. We got about 3 minutes left. Yes, Les? You wanted to give an explanation, Les?
What I wanted to say is that my motivation was not Schadenfreude.
I know that. I think everybody else knows that too.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for clearing that up. JCC, would you like to comment? I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, it's in relation to the misunderstanding when people call out someone for using word salad. It's not to quote unquote joy in their
This is Carlotta.
mistakes, right? So it's not Schadenfreude. That's another support. What Les was saying.
Well, you don't know that for 100% certainty, do you?
I said generally, right? So
generally.
Yeah, there could be somebody that does set somebody up to make them use.
So I will just go back to what I actually said, which is kind of interesting because it's the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. And immediately, Victoria, the trans man, and Carletta, also a trans man, immediately start making word salads about word salads.
Salad in a intellectual quote unquote debate to try to make them look not intelligent and get joy and pleasure out of like gotcha moment, right?
Fuck, is this my Schadenfreude moment?
However, generally speaking, when people recognize someone using word salad, it's not to fulfill their happiness when someone made a mistake.
Well, I find, and this is just my opinion, that a lot of people come on to Clubhouse to criticize and argue with others, and I don't believe they would be doing it unless they experience Schadenfreude. But maybe people disagree with that. I think a lot of people come on to Clubhouse to argue and disagree with other people because it makes them feel good. But that's just my humble opinion.
That's not the same thing.
Right. No, but that's not the same thing, though.
It's not the same thing as Schadenfreude. Yeah. So
right?
they'll feel
You
good
can feel,
at winning it. Yeah, they'll feel good out of winning an argument and get a dopamine rush. They can feel good like the noise trolls do when they come in and speak their rhetoric or play some music. They get a dopamine rush out of that. That is not necessarily schadenfreude at all. So I think you're misusing it, just like Victoria's trying to point out.
Yeah, it really does mean something like you've got somebody in your life who you don't really like, but maybe you know them. Maybe it's somebody at work. Maybe it's an ex-spouse or something. And something terrible happens to them. They lose a family member. They break a leg or something like this, like really misfortunate, right? Unfortunate, I should say. And then you actually feel like, good, fuck them. Good, I'm glad that happened to them. Right? It isn't a good thing. and it isn't, and certainly there might be some people who are in the audience and are listening to a debate and somebody gets pahoned, right? And they might go, yeah, good, I'm glad that person got pahoned, right? But, you know, that it is a little bit of a different thing. So that's why I think, you know, I'm not trying to get any pleasure out of critiquing. I'm just saying I think you're using the word wrong, and you should look into it. And if you disagree, that's fine. You can keep using it that way, and there will be disagreement. Pronouns, please. Consensus, it seems here, doesn't mean that consensus means anything to you, but is that that the word has been reflected wrong here, right? That's all. And, you know, if it was somebody else who I didn't know, I wouldn't get on stage just to tell them, right? It's that, you know, I care about you and your room being accurate. That's all. So I don't get any pleasure out of this. I'm quite uncomfortable. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm quite uncomfortable right now, which I'm usually not.
Oh, perhaps we could look up the etymology of the word, and that might help.
Well, I'm on Google right now. I don't know about the etymology of the word. Take it for what it's worth. Google says, quote, Schadenfreude, pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune. I'll repeat, pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune.
Right, and then if you click see more, the origin comes from German, and it's Schaden, which means harm, plus Freud, which means joy, right? So the thing about this whole like coming in and owning somebody in a debate, that's not causing harm, and it's not quite joy, right? So anyway, it's just funny to look at these words and break them down and be able to say, like, I'm glad that I think it was Dude said, let's look at the etymology of it and go harm and joy, right?
Well, I'm glad that this happened because this is what I was talking about. And the only reason why I came to stage to talk as well. So it's working out just fine.
And I'm also very glad that after Victoria gave her original share, I said I completely agree with what she said, and I don't disagree with anything she said. I'm glad I said that. But that being said, we are at the top of the hour. And 2 hours in the tank, 1 hour left. Thank you, Dr. James, John, Cora, Scott, for doing the heavy lifting. Everybody else on stage, contributions, shows better with you than without you. Everybody in the audience, we encourage you to come on up and talk about anything you want. We've been speaking a good part of the past hour about words and their meanings and how they're used and how they're not supposed to be used. This seems like an appropriate fake song from the Beatles. Don't go away. We'll be right back on Ask the Atheist.
You know, I'm pretty much always willing to contribute, and so this particular thing I was thinking about this week, and it's related to a lot of what's been going on in government. I've been reading some kind of insider listserv conversations of clinicians who are employees of the federal government talking about what's been happening this week related to the eradication of DEI as the new sort of executive order policy of choice of this administration. And it seemed like it's really, for some folks who, for example, in my field, DEI is really in some ways at the core of what psychologists do and what people in mental health do, because taking one sort of culture into consideration and all sorts of other things into consideration related to race and mental status, et cetera, sexual orientation, gender orientation, all this sort of stuff is really integral to the way we look at people to some degree. And it's at least an aspect of it that is, even within the DSM-5 and ICD-11, this is something that it becomes part of an assessment, is this sort of perspective. And what we do essentially is help care for people who are disproportionately affected by, all sorts of different issues. And so the questions have come out understandably as people are basically being told and that you need to essentially rat on people who are trying to obfuscate, any programs, any presentations, anything within, any aspect, any level of the care that's being given right now. They're really, this has come in fast and hard. It's kind of, I don't know if it's like a shock and awe campaign to some degree in terms of what the hoped for impact is. But in any case, what I was going to say is people are really...
Everything is now essentially Donald Trump. Everything is essentially a TDS, a reflection, or a TDS segmentation. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where all roads lead to Trump now. Essentially, the TDS resistance movement is always there. Trump is the greatest mind virus that has ever come out of the pipelines. And Dr. James, in his field of psychology or psychiatry, if he really is a psychiatrist, I doubt it. But anyways, let's continue listening to the wisdom of Dr. James.
Seemingly already within, the federal government having to take action on this. And so what I found really interesting was some of the conversations I've heard between clinicians talking about. So, is this related exclusively to hiring practices? Does this in effect make hiring someone because of skin color or whatever, does it now allow this carte blanche? Another question was, so does that mean we can just...
No, I will point out what Dr. James said. Skin color or whatever.
Lean in all the way to DEI and never hire another white person again? Or does this mean that, white people are basically going to be the color of choice for the next 4 years? It seems like there's a lot of kind of up in the air stuff that's happening, and I'm trying to take a little spaciousness here, so just consider this my fresh five. So,
do you want me to answer that question, or do you want me to answer that question, or do you want to move on with your next topic?
Well, I was taking my fresh five, and I was kind of asking rhetorically. Yeah, thanks. I was, in a sense, I'm asking myself this as I'm talking to you. I'm thinking out loud a bit. And so I am curious if anyone else works for the federal government currently, what the impacts of this policy have been for you in your current circumstance to whatever level of comfort you have related to this, talking about this. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
The change in the federal government stance regarding DEI does not change the fact that we have protected classes in America. What are the protected classes? Skin color, race, religion, age, sex, whistleblower, and I believe sexual orientation. Those are the big seven. You are not allowed to discriminate by hiring and firing on any of those issues. If you hire or fire someone because of any of those protected classes, regardless of DEI, you are committing a violation against somebody's civil rights. So that is the answer to part of your question. As far as... Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up. So this is also impacting things like if someone has some kind of presentation that they've done on, say, like
Is it presentation or presentation?
A bias of some kind, or there's all these other sort of nuances and a growing list of terms
It's always nuances and growing lists of terms to use.
that are, adjacent to this, phrase or idea
Adjacent to phrases and ideas.
of DEI that are also getting flagged, and they're basically having to just destroy it. I mean, it is pretty extreme.
Extreme.
I don't know if you muted yourself or if you.
No. I stopped there because I only wanted to get a little word in there.
Okay. As far as federal employees, and you didn't bring it up, but big corporation.
I don't know, maybe it's extreme not to hire on merit, but to hire entirely on gender and skin color. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe that's too extreme.
Big corporations in the past couple of months have been steering away and changing their DEI policy, basically eliminating it. Target, Walmart, Amazon. I think Costco is still doing DEI, but McDonald's, a lot of the big corporations are steering away from DEI. The pendulum is swinging. However, if anybody wants to talk about,
Steve, I would like to just mention something. If I could.
Sure. Let me just finish it. Dr. James did raise the issue. If anybody works for the federal government and you want to talk about it, that's fine. But go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't work for the federal government, and Costco has on Friday 98% of their shareholders agreed to continue their DEI practices, which is going against the grain of what you were just saying, Walmart, Target.
Well, but I did say that Costco was sticking with their DEI. I did say
That's
that.
correct. You did. Yes. Yeah. And I was just giving you a percentage there. 98% of the shareholders agreed that they should continue with the DEI. Now, I was in a room the other day, and a person came in who is disabled and works for the federal government. And I think, and this goes kind of like to the words.
How do you work if you're disabled?
Instead of classifying people as disabled, they're using the term infirm. And I think that's really, really scary myself, because
infirm, INFIRM.
Correct.
Go ahead.
She was saying. So, I don't know. I don't work for the federal government, but this is what came down in a letter to her department and her place of work. So I think that's very much a backtrack in our understanding of disability. And it lets in this whole idea that because you're disabled, you're unable to do the job. And we already have that fallacy. And it's not always spoken out loud, but I know from personal experience, if you go in, I cannot hide my disability. I'm blind, and it's obvious. Other people don't have to disclose, and you would never know. But I've had the experience where I've gone in for a job interview. I don't get the job. They don't state that it's because I'm blind or visually impaired, but the inferences are there nonetheless. You get ghosted, and you don't get a reason as to why you're not hired. That's fine. But definitely, I think there is a bias that's there, and overall, disabled people are less likely to be employed overall.
Because they're disabled.
Public. So to utilize the word infirm, I think just adds into that whole narrative and reinforces it. And it's unfortunate and very discouraging. And I'll end there. Thanks so much.
And thank you. And by the way, I forgot that protected class disability. Disability is clearly a protected class. If you discriminate by hiring or firing based on disability, you are violating someone's civil rights.
Add a little bit here.
Yeah.
She also mentioned that basically they're going to come into the workspace and reevaluate everybody that they consider quote unquote infirm to see if they actually have the qualifications to do the job. So, see how that goes.
Thank you. Jane is new on stage. Good morning, Jane.
Hey, Steve, thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to just maybe infuse a bit of what I think know is happening. That the DEI as an umbrella term is it's horribly not useful. It's useless, I would say. What is being attempted to be legislated, it's not an executive order, as we know. But one, I don't think the whole frame of protected class is going to be in existence in the near future, Steve. I think the dismantling of civil rights is what is actually, and I don't know, actually at play. As far as the federal government, the downstream impact in organizations is how do we comply with what our government requires us to do? And I know you know that. So I expect at the source this will get changed. But in the meantime, what companies have been doing is rolling back or changing. And I hope to God no one hears this as change the words. That doesn't matter. It will not help you, will not save you. Let it go is my advice to people who have any direct influence over DEI in their organizations. But here's what don't worry about it anymore on hiring targets. Because you know what, Steve? That was so close to quota that some of us who were in these roles knew, one, the powers that be, they don't want that, don't like it. You use up all your credibility trying to say, well, it's not a quota, it's a target. It's bullshit. It didn't work very well. So that's going, I think, race-based especially. But I think it's going to be broader, Steve. Any categorization, culture, ethnic, sexual orientation, all of these things that were counted so that companies, I'm not talking about the federal government, could say, well, we make these great claims, our employment brand, is the shortcut for saying that about usually fairness, we want you to belong here, this is a great place to work, all of those claims. I think the only way that anyone is influencing in today's workplace has a shot is to say, but do we want all the employees, including those who are no longer allowed to count? Do we still want everyone who's working here to experience that promise? So, it's a little bit of detail on how to work around what's always been there, Steve, in my career, is nobody wants quotas. They don't want to count. It immediately invokes feelings of preference, preferential treatment. So it really is the focus. As far as human beings working together, all those same quote identities who work there one day are there the next day until the patterns of, exclusion start being unmanaged. Umbrella term is
because I am and I
whether from receiving public
Grandchildren.
you're derived by some.
Disagree, that's fine.
You quote unquote
cities.
We used to dismiss this as
Once Elliot going twice, we'll come back to Elliot. Let's move on to Earth. Good morning, Earth. It's a pleasure to see you on the show. What would you like to talk about?
Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, that's done.
I know.
Communication and hypnosis. And then word salad is like what Shakespeare said. Words, 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 words. And if all you do is use words, and you never listen, and shut up, and you never learn the secret of meditation, go within to know the truth that the more you speak, the more you think, the further from the truth you will be, Uncle Steve. Therefore, stop thinking and end your problems. Stop with your word salad, sir. You're addicted to salad. Salad words, word salad. I am complete. Thank you, Uncle Steve.
Thank you. First class escort to the VIP. I think that that was somewhat entertaining because it lasted 60 seconds. I have no problem with that contribution to the show. 3 to 5 minutes, I probably would have gotten a headache, but 60 seconds, I think it was good for the show. Let's try Elliot again. Elliot, are you there? Elliot going once, Elliot going twice. Okay, we'll come. Oh, there we go. Hi, Elliot.
I'm getting breakfast with my daughter, so.
Does that mean you don't want to speak now, but you want to speak in a little bit?
Yeah, in a little bit.
All right, go ahead and go on mute. We'll come back to you. So we've got our mandatory break coming up in about 10 minutes, and then the show will go 1 more hour. So if you're in the audience and you want to come on up, please feel free. You are encouraged to talk about anything. Religion, God, politics, current events, Clubhouse, you, me. And if you need some suggestions on what to talk about, here's what I call the best 2 minutes on Clubhouse.
Tonight, for the first time ever, the U.S. using military
Republicans voted against.
And the giant pandas go.
We all admire artists when we say they're unself-conscious. They seem so natural. They seem to dance or paint or talk or play the piano so effortlessly. Of course, a lot of work has gone into it. But if you are a great artist, your so-called periods of practice, when you sit for hours and study your technique on the piano, you will not do that effectively unless it is a pleasure for you. You have to come to the point where going over it again and again is a dance.
Don't stay.
We all admire art.
The unconscious is, so to say, the part of experience which is doing consciousness, just as the trough manifests the wave, the space manifests the solid, the background manifests the figure. And so all that side of life which you call unconscious, unknown, impenetrable, is unconscious and is unknown and is impenetrable because it's really you.
Hindus use incense, Buddhists use incense, Mohammedans use incense, Catholics use incense. But there came a break at the time of the Reformation when incense was somehow given up. Oh, Hebrews use incense too, or used to. And why is this? Why this repression of the sense of smell? I don't fully know the answer to that question, except to say that I do know that it is repressed. And that it's a shame. We're depriving ourselves of a whole world of wonder, because the nose is just as sensitive as the ears, and there can be music for the nose in the same way as music for the ears, and the same way as there can be glories for the eyes, there can be glories for the nose. And I don't know why we're so diffident, so uptight about admitting that we have noses. It's shocking news for us, for the human race, for our pride. You're only making a mess by trying to put things straight. You're trying to straighten out a wiggling world, and no wonder you're in trouble. So you can't do anything. So you can't transform yourself. And what can you do? What happens then if you actually realize you've come to a dead end? What happens when you just wait? There's nothing you can do. You watch. And all you see is what goes on that is happening of itself. You're breathing, the wind is blowing, the trees are waving, your blood is circulating, your nerves are tingling. It's all going on of itself. But you know, that's you. That's the real you. The you that goes on of itself. People say, oh, you can't change human nature overnight. You're asking us to give up the ego. And that's the most difficult of all things to do. Actually, it isn't. Because the ego doesn't exist. But of course, if you try to give up your ego with your ego, then it'll take you to the end of time. Because this is the point. You can't transform yourself. You can't make yourself sane. You can't make yourself loving. You can't make yourself unselfish. And yet it's absolutely necessary that we be that way. It's absolutely necessary. If we are going to hand over the direction of nature to nature, which is what it comes to, it's absolutely necessary that we let go of ourselves, and it can't be done. Not by anything that we call doing it, acting, willing, or even just accepting things. You can't do it. Why? Because you don't really exist as that kind of a separate ego or personality. It's just an idea based on a phony feeling. People say, oh, you can't change human nature overnight. You're asking us to give up the ego. And that's the most difficult of all things to do. Actually, it isn't. Because the ego doesn't exist. But of course, if you try to give up your ego with your ego, then it'll take you. Now, from the moment we were little children, when teachers in class screamed at us, pay attention, we go tight in various ways. Either to see or hear more clearly, to concentrate, or to will something which is supposed to be difficult to do. And that constitutes a habitual tension over the whole body that's there almost all the time. And that feeling of unnecessary tension is, as it were, the material sensation upon which we fasten this concept of I. We hang it on to that feeling. The concept is not us. The feeling of tension is completely phony. It has nothing to do with success in seeing, hearing, or acting. And so we get the marriage of an illusion with a falsehood. And that we call ourselves. And no wonder we feel cut off from everything, alienated, frightened of life and death. But you know, when people talk about very deep things, they never.
For thy guards. On a milk-white aspen over the sea, to me, come with Apollo in bridal dress, shepherdess and pythoness. Come with Artemis, silken shod, and wash thy white thigh, beautiful God. In the moon of the woods, on the marble mount, the dimpled dawn of the amber fount. Dip the purple of passionate prayer in the crimson shrine, the scarlet snare.